This summer, we are going to be traveling through Europe for 2 months, visiting some familiar places, but more excitingly, exploring a whole new set of countries. But instead of flying over the Atlantic, we chose to sail across by a transatlantic cruise.
We are on the ship.
We arrived in England and spent a week driving around the villages along the Cornish coast. We then head south to Turkey and spend 4 days seeing the sights and eating our way through Istanbul.
Wow, it's pretty incredible.
And then explore the otherworldly landscapes of Cappadocia.
Now we know why they call it Love Valley.
We then head north to the former countries of the Soviet bloc. Our first stop is the Stoic capital of Sofia, Bulgaria.
And then we have, which I've never seen before, a statue, a monument to a car.
We travel on to Romania and experience both its capital, Bucharest, as well as the smaller towns and countryside of this beautiful country.
It feels like it's very, very storybook, almost like I'm walking through Disneyland.
Before heading to the elegant yet humble city of Budapest, Hungary.
We got some beers.
And ending our Eastern Bloc tour in the country of Slovakia and its charming capital, Bratislava. We cross the border into the west and visit Austria before heading to France to catch our flight home. From serene scenic lakes to the bustle of Vienna, we drive, boat, slide, and ride our way across Austria.
It's nice.
Before ending our trip in the lavender fields of Provence and the beaches of the Côte d'Azur.
How long have you been dreaming of this?
I don't know, but it's sure good.
Mixing old and new, comfortable in the unknown, we hope to have a bunch of new experiences and a lot of fun along the way. Okay, we've made it to England. We are now in our little MG rental car, and we just left
Cute little car.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've got like no leg room.
Little was the operative word.
Yes. So we picked, unfortunately, the smallest car we possibly could get. Anyway, we're on our way to Cornwall. Weather is typical English, cloudy, but some sun. No rain yet. And we have about 3.5 hour drive to get down there. So let's head out. We arrived at our Airbnb and settled in. Our first night here in Cornwall, we're taking it real simple and easy. Sausage roll for dinner with a Cornish pasty and a Cornish local St. Austell Brewery beer. Over the next 5 days, our plan was to explore the Cornish coast and inland moors, visiting towns big and small, to soak up the flavors of Cornwall. As the southern and westernmost area of England, Cornwall benefits from the jet stream, with warmer temperatures and subtropical microclimates. After a homemade full English breakfast, we headed out to the small harbor town of Foy. In the 18th and early 19th century, Foy thrived as a busy port for China clay exports, and later was where the U.S. 29th Division loaded on ammunition before landing on Omaha Beach. Today, it's now mainly a fishing port and tourist town with galleries, shops, and pubs. After taking the Bodnik ferry, we drove over to the Menabili estate, just a few miles down the coast. While a private estate, there are several public right-of-ways, beaches, as well as the Southwest Coastal Path. This coastal path is England's longest path, extending over 600 miles all around Cornwall. Water. Light green, emerald green, it's so pretty. And it's just, there's nothing here. It's just cows and fields. It's just beautiful. We ended up hiking only 3 miles of the coastal path, yet we felt we deserved a beer. On the other side of the bay was the fishing village of Charlestown, and a pub.
So it's an IPA, but creamy like an ale. It's a really interesting combination. It's actually really good too.
While we could have sat at the pub all afternoon, we wanted to explore the town before heading to our final town of the day and dinner. Besides being a fishing village, Charlestown was also a major port for copper exports. Now its idyllic charm is a great place to spend a relaxing afternoon. One of the prettiest towns on the south coast is Mevagissey, and it's where we wanted to end our day. With a lot of the day trippers gone, the town was fairly empty, and after wandering around a bit, we headed to the harbor. Soon it was time for dinner, and with fishing boats all around and the salty sea air, nothing was going to be better than fish and chips. With settlers arriving over 10,000 years ago during the Stone Age, Cornwall has seen its share of stories, myths, and lore. Today we wanted to delve into just a little of them, and our first stop was Bodmin Moor. Unlike the pastoral fields and picture postcard seaside villages that Cornwall is most known for, Bodmin Moor is a rugged, windswept, almost desolate place dotted with bogs, prehistoric stones, gullies, and abandoned tin and copper mines. Back in the 17 and 1800s, the moor was the haven of smugglers and criminals who hid everything from silks, tea, rum, and brandy in the coach houses and caves on the moor to avoid paying taxes. This history, combined with the moor's dangerous natural elements, made it a perfect setting for both literary and mythological stories. From smugglers and pirates to the location of King Arthur's sword and a mythological big cat-like creature, the Bodmin Beast, Bodmin Moor made for an interesting hike. Reminds me of Edoras, Lord of the Rings. The moor is home to also working farms, and there were a lot of cute sheep freely moving around. While Ruth was thinking yarn, I was trying to avoid all the sheep poop. One of Ruth's favorite authors is Daphne Du Maurier, who lived in Cornwall and used the area as a setting for several of her novels. Jamaica Inn, a pub and coach house located in the center of Bodmin Moor, was a known hangout for smugglers and where she stayed for a short time in the 1930s. It also became the basis of one of her novels. Still a working pub and inn, it's also home to the Daphne Du Maurier Museum. Our final stop on our story, lore, and myth tour was the ruins of Tintagel Castle. Perched high on an island bluff accessible by a wooden bridge, the earliest building on the site predates the year 500 when it served as a fortress and trading settlement before work on a castle began in the 12th century. Over time, the castle is linked to the mythic King Arthur, though there is no evidence he ever existed. Today, it was back to the coast, and we were heading to the far end of England. We started off back on the southwest coastal path, hiking to Godrevy Point. Just around the corner from Godrevy Point is the resort town of St. Ives. It was approaching lunchtime and we needed something to eat. While we were on the lookout for something more savory, we came across this cute cafe and stopped in for Cornish cream tea. Cream tea is a Cornish tradition, served with a pot of tea and more deliciously fresh-baked scones, strawberry jam, and clotted cream. And as we were in Cornwall, the only way, which is the right way to do it, was jam first and cream on the top. We started to explore the town but didn't get too far as we came across a brewery, and while we had just had tea and scones and hadn't had lunch yet, the beer was calling. The weather was beyond beautiful, and we headed to the seafront to finally find a Cornish pasty for lunch and to enjoy the English summer sunshine. Unfortunately, the camera mic we thought we had fixed was still not working, and we didn't discover this until after we left Cornwall. But suffice it to say, the Cornish pasty was delicious.
Real Cornish ice cream in Cornwall. Sticky toffee pudding with melon. So creamy. So good.
Gotta watch out for the seagulls, though. As I said, gotta look out for the seagull. He just grabbed the entire scoop of cone. That's him right there. That's the guy that just took my ice cream. 17 miles southwest of St. Ives and just 4 miles from Land's End sits the Minack Theatre. Built largely by hand on the edge of a cliff in 1930, it's part botanical garden and theater as it hosts musical and stage productions in a truly one-of-a-kind setting. As we arrived late in the day and they were preparing for a performance, we only had an hour to walk around. Is insane that bus is fitting on these lanes, or that we have to drive with that bus on these lanes. We had one last stop today at Land's End. 4 miles from Minack Theatre, we had planned on watching the sunset from England's furthest west point, but with parking at 15 pounds and what looked like a string of tacky tourist shops, we grabbed a quick picture and headed home. Cornwall is full of unique places that take advantage of its coastal location. One of the most impressive is St. Michael's Mount. Similar to its sister mount in Normandy, France, Mont Saint-Michel, an abbey and monastery originally crowned the island. Today a castle sits at the top, and since the 1500s, the island has been owned by the St. Auburn family, but is managed by the National Trust. Built on top of a rock that, depending upon tides, is either 360 degrees surrounded by the sea, or during low tide is connected by a causeway, the mount also enjoys a unique microclimate, allowing tropical and subtropical plants to flourish. Arriving at low tide, we were able to cross over to the island by the causeway. Up through the 1800s, there were as many as 220 residents on the island, with 3 pubs, shops, and schools. Today, just the family and a few caretakers live here. As we got ready to leave, we noticed the tide was coming in, cutting off the island from the mainland. Visitors were scrambling to beat the oncoming tide. The island offers a boat transfer when the tide is in, but there were still some brave people walking across. I ain't crossing that. There's no way I'm gonna make it across. Good thing we came in the morning. We capped our day with a beer and a pub dinner. Every street should have this sign. Our final day in Cornwall was bittersweet. We had an amazing time, but tomorrow we were moving on. While we saw a lot of different towns, both on the coast and inland, we'd only just scratched the surface of what this area has to offer. Nonetheless, this morning we were headed back to the Southwest Coastal Path for another hike, this time at Roos Beach. I can't believe how far the tide goes out here. We're at Roos Beach, and the water is way over there. And here's the actual beach. It is nuts. It's at least 5 football fields, maybe 4 football fields, of how far the water has to come in until it actually hits the beach. The final fishing village that we wanted to see was Port Isaac. Built around a natural harbor, Port Isaac became famous as the fictional town of Port Wen in the English TV series Doc Martin. While a bit overrun with tourists like ourselves, there was no denying the town's charm, cuteness, and almost idealized version of a Cornwall fishing village, without it being staged. We wandered around checking out the buildings they used as locations for the show, and the harborfront before trying once more to enjoy some ice cream.
I'm being really careful scanning the skies just in case a seagull tries to take my ice cream again. Yesterday, stole it right out of my cup. Paranoid that I'm gonna get hit again.
You survived the seagulls.
I survived the seagulls so far.
You still have your ice cream.
Yes, my ice cream is intact.
While we didn't and couldn't see everything here in Cornwall, we enjoyed every minute of its beauty, its charm, and the opportunity to slow down and relax.
This is beautiful.
Our next leg of the trip promises to be opposite as we head to the bustling and historical city of Istanbul.
Wow.
It's pretty incredible.
And explore the natural but rugged beauty of Cappadocia.
This is really cool. I love this.